but I just thought it was kind of interesting. All right, we're going to quickly do some, just let's give some, I'm putting this on here. Is anybody missing today? Look around, take, nobody? Okay. Just a heads up, I went to a faculty meeting on Monday, and I forgot to talk to you guys last time about it. But I did talk to you guys at one time that the 24th was going to be my end-all, be-all final day. It is no longer that. I need you guys to have stuff done by the 21st. Okay, so that puts it up 3 days. If you're on top of things, really nothing matters. Meaning, like, you're not going to have a problem, right? But if you need to do test corrections or if you need to do things, that is the situation where it becomes a little bit haphazardly, and it needs to be done by the 21st. Now, if you'll recall, our test is on the 16th, I believe. That gives you 4 days afterwards to retake that test. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Me and Miss Christensen talked, and we're going to make you either, not make you, allow you to either A, she's doing it as a group test, like groups of 3. I don't know if I like that so much. I think I'm going to maybe allow your notes. I might do the group test. I'm not sure. With the where I need to be, I don't think there's a time frame for a district final unless they absolutely make me. So I don't think that's going to be in our game plan. So the 21st is going to be the final day for anything and all. Okay, does that make sense? Please, please, please put that in your notes. Now, with that being said, the reason why we're doing a note/group test, whatever I do, I don't know what I'm doing yet on that day. I'd make sure your notes are really up to date, right? But I don't want you guys to really have to retake that last test. I don't want to at all. The only test I really hope you guys will retake is the one that we just barely had. For the fact of the matter is, the stats test I've already talked to you guys about, that should be a padded your grade one, right? Make sure you get that sucker up high. Average in the past has been 90%. It should be pretty easy. That's what we're starting today. Who's my softs again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just 5 of you. On Friday, you guys will be exiting and taking your Spire today. Like I had kids take it today. You guys are assigned on Friday. Okay, does that make sense? You are scheduled for 90 minutes, but none of those kids came back in 90 minutes. Like they came back in like 40. Like they all of them busted through it. By the time I got to, because last time I told you guys I didn't get through all of 10-7. We only did a partial amount of it. So on Friday, I am going to be, because we have more time, I'm going to be doing 8.3, 8.4 plus secondary part of 10.7. The parts that are missing. Does that make sense? You should be back by the 10.7 part. I will be recording the next few day lessons, all my lessons here, so that everybody can understand and go through it. But overall, just be aware, ending time, you guys only have 3 more days after today of learning new stuff. If you put it in that perspective. All the other stuff is review or test days. Okay, does that make sense? So 3 more times, not necessarily in a row, but 3 more times of learning new stuff. Now, if you'll recall, I will not be here either of your days next week. Next Tuesday is also the last time to do your test corrections for a higher test score, just for the test corrections. Okay, if that's all you want to do is just a higher test score by doing test corrections, that gives you 2%. Some of you guys obviously need to retake that test, and I'm asking you to do that because most likely it'll be that test as your retake test anyway. So let's start coming in and getting that done. Please don't leave to the end of the quarter type situation. Does that make sense? With your notes and with or a buddy, I hope to be that test is going to be a little bit nicer than the one we currently have. Make sense? Statistics currently right now, we will be doing that, but I would like to ask if anybody has any questions that they would like to go over. Yes. The statistics test? No, the first 2 days, remember, we talked about how this is a unit within the unit. So we went 10-6, 10-7, took a little break. We're going to do 8-1, 8-2, 8-3, 8-4 review test. And then on Monday the 6th, we come back and we start 10-8. Then on that Wednesday, we do 6.5. Then we do 2 review days and then the test. That's our schedule. Nope. Today, not including today. 8-3-8-4, 10-8, 6.5. I did. Chuck. I would, if I didn't give you your notes, then I'd be worried about retake because it can be. But with your notes, it should be pretty straightforward. Now, just like we did with our last test, some of you guys had the note card, but you didn't even use the note card because it's already in your head, right? Does that make sense? Sometimes if you treat it like that and just still study hard, it's easier, even though there are notes possible. Now, if you get stuck, then that's when you jump in and look around a little bit. But sometimes when you use your notes, you guys are so nervous to follow exactly, but go as your test and see what you actually know and then jump back on it. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Answer your question? Yes. Yes, I love that. Don't use them as a crutch, but it can be a tool to help you, but not necessarily to carry you along. Okay? Any questions within the homework of 10-7? We're going to hold on to it until I assign these problems right here are going to be assigned. We are not going to talk about these questions until on Friday, though. Does that make sense? But I'm adding these on to the 10-7 homework that was last time. I would suggest you write them down. But these are points, these are questions that I will talk about how to do in Friday. But once again, my A1 and A2 got the lesson today because their time was extra today than it was last time. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so this will be added on top of your 10-7 because we didn't finish it all the way. If you can do it, awesome. But we will be going over them on Friday. 10-7 will be due on Tuesday. Okay, for you guys. Answer question? Feel good? Once again, I will not be here Tuesday. I will be out at a meeting, and then I'll be at another meeting on Thursday, but those are both test and review days. You should be okay. Temple. I don't know what the heck it asks, so tell me. Okay, give me a point. I'll show you what it means. Okay. Can we make it -3(2)? Because I think -3(2) is harder than 3(-2). I think you'll get the idea through this if that's the case. So let's first off draw it. Because right now we're in rectangular and we want to go polar, correct? I believe that's the question. So really quick, I draw it. Over -3 up to, so what's our good old radius? 4 plus 9 is √13. So our radius is √13. So far, so good? Okay. Is that, I know the color's off, so you just let me know if the color's not really working for you. I know it sucks, but we got to keep going. Okay, now how do I find the angle? Because notice this is radius, angle. I found the radius, now I need to know the angle. Well, technically I can use any of the trig functions, but I'm going to use tangent because that's the one that uses y and x. Given uses the stuff that was given to us. Does that make sense? So tangent of theta is -2/3. How do we find the angle if I know the answer? The arctangent. Can you go ahead and do that for me, please? The arctangent. Everybody needs a calculator out today, by the way. Our homework today is pure 100% calculator. .58 is what I got. 0.59. Okay. -0.59. I bet you can't because it's a radian measurement. -0.59. Okay. But that puts us down in quadrant 4. Where are we? Okay, so if that was quadrant 4, then good. Boom. -0.59. There's your answer. Right? But we're in quadrant 2. What is 0.59? Remember, that's a reference angle. So I put that up in quadrant 2 right here. 0.59. Now notice, remember, how much is from here to here? Well, that's what we're looking for. But we do know what there to there is, don't we? How much is that? Pi, because we're in radians. And we cut back 0.59. So if I go 3.14 minus that, that is 2.45. Is that right? Nope. 55, sorry about that. And that would be what we're at. Answer your question? So they're just using your graphing calculator. You could have did the intersection with the graphing calculator, but whoopity darn do. Okay. Let's go to her. Uh-huh. Always. Every time they do it, doesn't matter where it's at, because remember, there's two places that tangent is negative. They gave us the answer in quadrant 4. Once again, y is in quadrant 4. For us to be a function, remember on the inverse, that had to be between negative pi halves to pi halves. So that's always going to be the reference angle. Just like y 30 degrees and 210 degrees have the same coordinates, except for obviously negatives and positives and so forth, right? Because of that. But they're the same equidistance away from the x-axis. Does that answer your question? Yes. Awesome. Like I said, some of the things they might have did was maybe put this in their calculator and found the intersection, right? But I wouldn't do that. So you could do that. I more care about what's the polar point. And we found it, root 13, comma 2.55, right? Any questions? Else? Anybody else? By the way, you've been getting a lot of compliments on your beaver over here. Yep. 8.1, ladies and gentlemen, 8.1. Not in your textbook. We're calling this Unit 8. This has just, we could do this on our Math Excel, but we just had worksheets instead. Not on this quick little unit, no. Okay. I don't use that one very often. Sometimes I do. I called a kid an a-hole the other day because he wouldn't. Never mind. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're going to do shoe sizes. Okay, we're going to go through. Ladies, you're going to add 2 to your shoe size, or subtract 2 from your shoe size. Sorry. It's okay. Just say it's a 5, which means it's a 3. Okay, we're going to start over there yonder with Connor. What's your shoe size, brother? 8. Chuck. You really wise? Wow, Chuck. So you're typically a 6.5 in female, so 4.5. We're going to round you to 5. If you're a half, just round up to either. Okay. 10. Isabel. 5. 6 for Paige. 5. We got a lot of females in this one. 7. So we'll call you a 7. Wow, Bigfoot over here. A 6. Temple. You guys should be writing this down because you're going to need it. If I take time to write stuff down, guys, that's a clue. I don't like to write stuff down. So where do we get to? 5 with Kelsey? Yep, go ahead. 8. Reese, my man. Where do you get your shoes a lot? Online? Mr. Bradshaw? So you're 11 in females. Have a hard time finding shoes for you? My wife does. Yeah, a lot. That's easier to find. It's easier to find. 9, 10, 12. How about you, Miss Monson? 11. You're a 13 in females? Where the hell do you even look? Online. Do you? A lot? Wow. I thought it'd be hard for my wife with an 11. Holy moly, that's really okay. 12, 6, 7, and last but not least, I guess I am last but not least. I'm 11. All right. All right, so here's everybody in this classroom. There's our shoe size. Let's say Shaq all of a sudden comes and sits down. He's a basketball player. He has a size 23. Okay, I just looked up online today. The largest size ever recorded is a size 32 from the tallest man that's ever lived. He was 8'3". They mentioned it. I don't know. I could look it up, but I don't know. Anyway, is everybody with me though? Okay, size 23. What is Shaq called then? He's an outlier. How many of you guys remember hearing the word outlier? Okay, an outlier, kind of, what does he do? It really disturbs our data, doesn't it? It really makes it adjust a little bit more and makes it a little bit skewed. That's the word I'm looking for. Makes it skewed. Okay, because that would all of a sudden make our average a little bit larger than it normally was. Okay, is everybody with me? Is that a good enough explanation of an outlier? So earlier today, my sophomores left for testing, and I just had my juniors, and there was about 15 of them, and there was only one girl. And so all the guys were like 10, 11, 9, you get what I'm saying, up in that area, and then she's like 4. She would be an outlier. But then I had some other people that were juniors that were in the other classes that were actually testing. They came in here, so I'm like, hey, let's get this a little bit better. There's more females there, so then they started adding their shoe sizes, so she wasn't an outlier anymore because other people started becoming among them, right? Does that make sense? But she would have been an outlier if I didn't add other people to that. Does that make sense? Because that could have skewed our data quite a bit, right? Then he would not be an outlier. Okay, does that make sense? There's actually a formula how to find the outlier. Not that I know it, nor do I care, because basically, guys, our statistics here is on a, I like to say, elementary / middle school level, just for the fact that we do it, we can still get into it, but if you guys take AP stats or whatever it might be, next year you'd get deeper into these items. Does that make sense? Well, let's go ahead and get rid of Shaq because he's not here in our room. I just wanted to give you an example of an outlier. Everybody there with me? Okay, so what we are going to discuss in 8-1 is mean. Can somebody tell me what mean means? It does mean average. What does average mean? I don't know why we don't call it average, which is add them up, divide by however many there are, right? We could do this. It sucks, but we could do that. We'll do it in a minute. Our calculator is going to do it for us, technically. Then we have median. Our median, what does that mean? It's the most middle, right? It's the middle. Is everybody there with me on a middle? Don't do that. Because we're going to do it all together. Don't jump ahead. Okay? Now let's talk. Let's say we have an odd amount of people in here. Would we have a median? We would. What if we had an even amount of people that put it on? We'd still have a median, but is there a direct middle number? You would have to go to the innermost 2 and then do what? Take the average of those 2. How many of you guys remember doing this stuff? Okay, we've done that. Is everybody with me so far? All right. Now, mode comes in with a little bit of arguments with it. I've seen multiple people tell me different ways, depending on what statistician you're talking to. It is, but here's the argument. Most means something that happens more than anything else. Correct? So if they're tied at both being 7 elements, let's say, is there truly something more than another? So there's some people say in that case there's no mode. There are other people saying these two occur the most, so they're both the mode. We are going to go with the second. I personally am a no moder. I don't think that would be a mode, in my opinion, because it doesn't fit the definition. Does that make sense? But we are going to stick with the things that happen the most. So if both numbers happen 7 times, like shoe size 11 and shoe size 7, does that make sense? Then both of them would be our mode. Does that make sense to everybody? But can you see also why the other argument's there, and some people argue that that's the mode as well? There isn't one. Okay. Think about, let's just, yes. Okay, the one that's with the most. I also like to say more because then I just replace the D with an R. That's how I kind of remembered it. Remember? Okay. And once again, all you guys have seen these definitions, right? Outliers seen and all that. Okay, now we're going to let the machine do the work for us. We're going to let the machine find the average, the median, and mode we have to do by ourselves. So let's already do the mode. Let's just quickly look at this data. What do you guys see or think that happens the most here? 10 happens 1, 2, 3 times. 12 happens 1, 2, 3 times. 13 happens twice. 5 happens 3 times. How many for 11? Oh, there's, hold on. Second row. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Is there 4 sixes? 1, 2, 3, 4. So far 5 and 6 are it. 11 has been our mode every time other than this class. Interesting. That's been my mode every other class, is 11. Interesting, huh? And maybe that's because there's been more guys in that than more girls. Maybe this class has more females than there is males. You know what I mean? Okay. So we're going to go with 5 and 6. 5 and 6. Do you guys agree? Okay. So our mode would be 5 and 6. Okay, but now we're going to go to our calculator. Everybody go to your machine. Once again, I would like to know who has the TI-83 just so I can instruct you. No one has a TI-83 in here. Right there. It's all pretty much the same except for one thing. And I'll show you that one thing when we get there. Anybody have the Casio? Yeah. Do you need help or you got it? Okay. No, we're not graphing, but we're going to put stuff in. If you need help, come on up and I'll show you what button to push. I have figured it out because I asked. Okay, actually I Googled. Okay, here we go. So I need somebody to be my caller. Will you call them out? Okay, so once again, here's where we're going to go. Stat, everybody hit stat, edit. Now look at mine. Mine has some information already in there. There's 2 ways to clear this item. I could go up into where L1 is and hit clear, and then hit enter, and then push down, and it's out. Or the other one I'm going to just show you, 3, 5, 6. You could go and do stat, number 4, clear list. That was list 2, so I'd go second L2, and it's done. So just some ways to get rid of that information without having to go clear them out. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's important to know how to clear out your information. Okay? All right. You ready to rock? Okay, here we go. 8, 12, 5, 10, 5, 6, 11. I only got 1 on that. Okay, 15. 11, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129,
13, 12, 6, 7, 6, 11.
So we just did 27 inputs. So therefore, you should have 27 inputs. So, couple things. Now, like I said, this test isn't very hard. Why do people miss points? Because there's not a lot of work to be shown. So therefore, there's not a lot of work to be shown. So when you're wrong, it's hard for me to give you points, right? Do I understand if you know what you're doing, or did you make a mistake and you see how I put that 1 on there and I kept going on? If I kept what I got going on, that obviously hurts my data, doesn't it? Does that make sense to everybody about how you want to be very efficient when you're putting in your information? Okay. Do you have the 82 or the 86? Do you have the 85 as well? Okay, we'll look at it in a minute. Can you kind of watch over somebody's shoulder, or would you like to borrow mine? Okay, and then we can figure out yours in a minute, okay? It can be done. I just, like I said, I'm not familiar with it, so we just have to do some research. Do you have a what one, Aaliyah? Do you have an 83 or 84? Okay, so you guys are very similar. Did you find it? Okay, because we did do it before earlier this year. I just don't, we'll have to look it up again. All right, so the thing that we're going to do now is when we find the median, how many of you guys hated putting all the information in numerical order? I hated it because I'd always miss one of those numbers. I'm like, snikers, I got to put it back in or something, right? So this will do it for us. If you look at the stat, look at number 2, what does it say? Sort ascending. So I'm going to go ahead and do L1 because that's where I put my data. Now, you guys might want to check because sometimes people delete a row. So it might not be L1. You might be putting your information in L2. Does that make sense? So I'm going to hit enter and it says done. But as soon as I go back into my stat edit, look what we have. Okay, now on the homework, I forgot on the homework, it talks about that you want to do it maybe via a frequency chart. What does a frequency chart mean? Well, for example, here's kind of what maybe a frequency chart might be. It might say, okay, 1, 3, 8, 10, and it says I only have 1 of those, 3 of those, 2 of those, and 6 of these. What would our data really be? It'd be 1, 3, 3, 3, right? 8, 8, 8, and then 10, 6, 10. Does everybody understand that? Let me show you how you'd put that data in. These are the numbers. I would put this in L1. Everybody there with me? I would then put this into L2. Okay? Don't want to do that to mess up the data that I've already put in. But is everybody with me on that? Okay, yes, sir. No, you just always have to observe that this would be your L2 and you'd put something in L3. Just be aware of where that's located because then you're going to have to use that a little bit later where I'm going to show you. Okay, so once again, I want to find some information. So I'm going to quit out again, go back to the main screen, and I'm going to use stat. Instead of edit this time, I'm going to go over to calculate. I want to calculate one variable statistics. So I go ahead and hit enter there. Now in your case, how many of you guys that have the TI 84s popped up on this screen? Okay, cool. You did not? You went back to the main screen? Okay. So if you went back to the main screen, that's your 83 or yourself. Anybody else go back to the main screen? You would need to go ahead and say, okay, for your case, I put my information in L1. What are you going to put? So we'll do L2. Does that make sense? L1 for your case. Now, if you were doing the frequency chart, the one that I was talking about putting them in 2, you'd go L1 is where you put your information, and then the frequency is where you put it, so you'd go L1, comma, L2, parentheses. Does that make sense? So in my case, for the frequency, I just go down to frequency and tell it where its list is at. Does that make sense to everybody? So in our case, if I did have a frequency, I'd put L2 right here. But I don't, do I? I just have all my data in one lump sum. Agreed? Okay, so then I just go ahead and hit calculate. Here we are. Now, to be honest, the shoe size average has been pretty much the same the whole day. What's our average? 8.85. X bar means average or mean. If you want to write that down, X bar is your average or your mean, however you want to call it. Do you need me to help you, Janice? Okay. That means that you added one and subtracted one. Means you somewhere in your data is a little bit interesting. Okay. Now that sigma x squared, those aren't important right now. The s of x and that little sigma of x, that will be important later. We'll come back to them. But n equals 27. What do you guys think that n is 27? Means how many things I put in, huh? Does that make sense? Okay. What about min x5, q1, median? Our median's 9. Box and whisker. How many of you guys remember box and whiskers? We're going to be doing a box and whisker in about 30 seconds. You have all the damn information right there. Damn. You can't blame me. I pointed to a river. Damn it. It's a river. Okay, Jordan River's over there. I'm pointing towards it. Anyway, onward. Okay, our median is 9. Our X bar, let's go back to our information and write that down. Once again, our X average was what? 8.85. Do I got a second on that? Was that what it was? Okay, our median was 9. So that means it was straight up 27 items, so therefore 9 is the most centered number, right? Correct? If it was 28 terms, they might have found something there, correct? By finding the average or something like that. And then mode was 5 and 6. Awesome. Was that hard to do? You're going to be asked that. You're going to also be asked to do the box and whisker. So let me go ahead and do the box and whisker just to show you what it looks like first, and then we can draw the one we have. Box and whisker. Okay, this means the min. This right here is Q1. What is Q1? What's another name for Q1? Say again. Quartile 1, that is very correct. Give me another name. Lower, okay, I guess I could go with that. It is also the 25th percentile. Now, some of you guys just took the ACT and you got your information back, and they probably had some words in there that said percentile. On your score, they probably said, hey, you're in the 80th percentile. You're in the 56th percentile when you took your test. How many of you guys saw that data on your ACT when you pulled it up? Okay. Now, I always struggled when I was your age. I'm like, what the heck's a percentile? Can anybody tell me what a percentile means? So did that mean that I scored 25% on my math test? What does that mean a little bit more, Kels? So let's talk about 100 people. Go ahead. Cool. So let's explain this, though. I took my GRE, which is kind of like an ACT for grad school, right? For me to get into grad school, I took the GRE. In my math class, in the math section, not the math class, but the math section, I got 100% on it. But I was in the 92nd percentile. What does that mean? That means out of 100 people, 8 other people also got 100. Right? Because I beat 92% of the people that took it. When you're looking at percentiles, think about it as competitive. You are beating that many people. Now, my writing sample on the GRE was the 8th percentile. Not very pretty. Okay? So that one didn't go so well for me. Yes. They would be at the 92nd percentile as well. And what that means is that technically I got the same score as them. So I technically did not beat them, right? And sometimes what happens is on this box and whisker, we're trying to finish it out, but sometimes this is called Q2 or the median. Isn't the median quartile 2, which is the 50th percentile? And that should make sense because the median is the middle number. There should be 50% of the data above and 50% below, correct? Does that make sense to everybody with me there? What about this line? What is this one? Quartile 3, which is also the 75th percentile. I have seen, and this last but not least, this is the max. I have seen where the max, the median, and quartile 3 have all been the same number. What does that mean? There's a bunch of information there, doesn't there? A lot of our data is in that spot, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and fill out ours. Now, when you fill out them, you have to do a number line below or they don't mean anything. Just like that last box and whisker I just had up there, it doesn't mean anything because there's no numbers associated with it, right? So what was our lowest shoe size? 5. Highest? So 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, where the hell did I go? I went from 7 to 10. I don't know how that happened. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and last but not least, 15. Okay? Now notice, that means my min was at 5, my max was at 15. Anybody recall what quartile 1 was? 6. Wow. We do this line a little bit taller than the min line. What was our median? 9. And quartile 3? Okay, let's look at this data. This does tell us a story, if you think about it. It's up there being a storyteller. Because it is saying there, each of these things, this represents 25%, doesn't it? This represents 25%, 25%, 25%, right? Everybody understand that? So 25% of our data is between 5 and 6. What does that mean? That means there's a lot of 5s and 6s up there. And we noticed that with our mode as well, didn't we? Now, if we look between 6 and 9, that's probably the second largest distribution in between them. There was 3 digits in between that. That means spaced out just a little bit more, isn't it? How about 9 to 11? Hey, that's a little bit more compact again, isn't it? And then obviously 11 to 15, not as many between there. He's not technically an outlier because we did get up to a 13, so it's still within the range. It's completely fine. Reese, you're still fine. Is everybody there with us? But could it really tell us? What if Shaq was in there? We'd really have a long quartile 3 probably, wouldn't we? But everything else would change. Our average, our median would be, it might even be the same. Okay? All right. You see how this could tell a little bit of data? Okay, but I would like to talk about percentiles in general. Because obviously our calculator just found the 25th. By the way, the 25th percentile, I think you brought that up, Tyler, is also what we call the median of the min and the median. Right? Because could you say that quartile 1 is the median of the first 50%? And quartile 3 is the median of the second half? Does that make sense to everybody as well? Okay. Everybody there? Now, what if I was looking for the 30th percentile, though? How do I find that number? Well, how many numbers did we have? 27, and I'm going to times it by what? 0.3. So what I get here is 8.1. Am I correct in that statement? 3 times 27 is 8.1? Okay, watch what happens. I'm going to go back to my information. So back to my stats. Look at my edit. I am looking for the 8 point, because what does 8.1 mean there? Does that mean 8.1 shoe size? No, what it truly means is the 8.1 digit. Now, once again, I told you we're doing this in more elementary, middle school statistics, right? If you took AP Stat, who is taking AP Stats? Anybody next year? You dig a little bit deeper on how to try to find the true percentile. I'm just giving you the baby steps. Make sense? So I would go down to the 8th term. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So notice the 8th term is 6, but the 9th term is 7. What was the number it told me to look for the 30th percentile? 8.1. Well, that's not an exact number. And what is the definition of percentile? The number of people we beat. So technically, the 30th percentile is, we're going to go with 7. Because we want to make sure we beat that amount. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe so? Okay. Any questions there? Oops. The number of elements we entered. 30th percentile, so 0.3. So if I was looking, like I said, in my 92nd percentile, let's say there was 500 people. And I was in the 92nd percentile. Somebody help me out there, 500 times 0.92. Let's say there's 500 people. That means 40 people got 100, right? So my score wasn't really that cool. I thought it was pretty nifty. You get where we're going at there, though? Okay, any questions on percentiles? Mean, median, mode, outliers, box and whiskers? That's 8-1. That's about a quarter of your statistics test. 8.2. We're doing 2 lessons today, like we are next time. Are you taking it on Friday? Okay, you're good. Okay, 8.2 is standard deviation and variance. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the hell that one is. I don't know where it's used. I don't even know what the definition of it is. Standard deviation. We're going to mostly talk about standard deviation. I will tell you this. The only thing I know about variance, it's standard deviation squared. That's all I know. That's all you need to know, unless you get in statistics. Then you can go figure that crap out. Okay? So far, so good. Any questions? Here we go. Standard deviation. Let me give you a general ballpark of what standard deviation is. Standard deviation is the average distance away from the average. Let me explain what that means. What was our average on our shoe size? What did we just pull up? 8.88, is that what it was? 5.8? 8.5. Okay, so for me, my distance away from the average was 2.42. That was the distance away from the average. My shoe size is 2.42 away from the average. Okay? Now, if you guys all did that as well, that would be the distance of all of our points away from the average, correct? Then we're taking the average of that amount, and then so here's what it is. Here's what the formula is. Sigma, which is the baby one this time, is the square root of, what does that one mean? Anybody guys remember what that symbol means? The sum of the difference between your data point and x bar. X bar meant the average, right? We square that number and we divide it by n. It's kind of like the average of the distance of the averages. We are going to find that using our calculator every time. So really, the formula doesn't matter. I just wanted to show you what it is. Like I said, kind of this is the sum of all you guys put together divided by n and took the square root. So basically, it's all the sum, right? The average distance away from the average. Okay? Is everybody there with me? On your calculator, go back to the calculator. Notice stat. Where was our info? See this S of x. See how it's 2.93. The sigma of x is 2.87. Now let's talk about those because those are both standard deviations. So which one do I use? We're actually going to use the S. And here's the reasoning. The S represents a sample. Most of the data we have is a sample. It's not the whole population. What's our sample? You guys are a sample of people within the whole population that has a shoe size, right? Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am. Okay, you could use the other one if necessary. We can look at it if we need to. So, the S of x is the sample. The sigma is using our sample to help estimate the population. Who would be the population? Shoe size of all people in the world, right? Does that make sense? In terms of American male sizes, because that's important to put on there. Yes. Population. Nope, because it's no longer a sample if it's everybody in the population. Because that would be the most truest thing that we would have, right? Hey, shut your mouth over there. Are you going to make me pull out the gun today? Yes, ma'am. Basically, our survey is, I understand the shoe sizes of our class, but notice technically our survey is shoe size, right? Take that, buckwheat. All right. Okay, so we'll be using this S, which is 2.93. Just write 2.93, okay? Now let's talk about what does this do? How does this help us? Well, how many of you guys probably have had somebody say, hey, will you curve the test? And I think we've talked about this before, but the true curve, in my opinion, is the normal curve. Things follow the normal curve, which means here's your average, 50% of you pass, 50% of you guys fail. How many of you guys would like to be graded on that curve? No, it'd probably be broken down into groups. Okay? So most of you guys have heard a curve as, hey, let's take the highest score and make it 100. True? That's kind of lowering your standards. You get what I'm saying, though, right? But I did have a professor. It wasn't my professor. It was actually a friend of mine. He actually asked his class, would you guys like to be graded on a curve? And they all said yes. He made them sign a document. And signed a document. The average was an 80%. That means people that got higher than 80 passed the class. People got below an 80% did not pass the class. Some people were very angry. His rule was you should always read what you're looking and signing. Okay? So, just to say, I would never want to be graded on a true curve. But what this is, here's our standard, here's our normal curve. And we're going to talk about more of the normal curve next class period. Okay? But standard deviations make up the normal curve. Okay? Here's our data. What was our average again? 8.85? Okay. So once again, we're going to go ahead and say, okay, well, here's our data. If I go out one standard deviation, now one standard deviation means you go add the standard deviation away from the mean and you would subtract the standard deviation. Some people get confused because you're doing it twice, but that distance is one standard deviation. So let's go ahead. What was that standard deviation? 2.93 was what it was. Is that a correct statement? So I'm going to go 8.85 plus 2.93, which is an 11.78, I want to say. Am I correct in that? And then this one is a 5.92. Okay. Is a lot of our information between that data? A 5.92 shoe size and 11.78. A lot of our data is within that, isn't it? Is it all of our data? So by the way, this is one standard deviation. Now let's do it again. So we're going to subtract and add one more time. So 2.93. So when I add 2.93 on this, I have, oh crikey, 14.71. And I'm going to subtract that. So I have 2.99. Am I correct in that? Somewhere around there. We're okay with that? Is all of our data within 2 standard deviations? Still no, because what's our lowest shoe size? Well, 5, it covers that, doesn't it? But does it cover our highest shoe size? So we need to do another one. So this is 0.06 shoe size to a 17.64. That is 3 standard deviations. Did I cover all of our information? It's 3. It took 3 standard deviations to cover our data. The previous 2 classes, it only took 2 standard deviations. Okay? So the question will be, how many standard deviations does it cover to cover your data? In our case, this would be 3. Now, in next time's lesson, we're going to talk about the normal curve and how standard deviations affects the normal curve. And it'll explain why usually our answer is going to be 3. I have only seen a standard deviation of 4 one time. My whole time of doing random sampling. I've only seen me use 4 standard deviations once. And next time you'll understand why it's very unlikely that you'll get 4 standard deviations. Nope, it wasn't even an outlier. Nope, nothing to do with anything on the outliers. It just so happened that it took 4 standard deviations. And we'll talk about it next time. Next time it'll make a lot of sense when we show it to you. Not necessarily. Okay. Each of these standard deviations represents something on this normal curve. And we'll talk about that. That's our next lesson. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Most of the time, the answer, if I had to guess, 90% of the time, it'd be 3. Could it be 2? Sure. Most of my answers will be 3. Okay? But once again, what is the standard deviation? Average distance away from the mean, right? So let's talk about in Europe. How many of you guys have seen on the tongue of your shoe that Europe has like size 44? Right? Let's say that my shoe size is 11, but in Europe it's 41. They just add 30 to everybody. I don't know if that's true, but just assume that that's what it is. Okay? What would that affect? Would it affect my mean or my standard deviation or both? Why the mean? Can you explain it to me? The amount away from the average. Because notice if my average right now is 8.85, and I add 40 to or 30 to it, that'd be 38.85. It would stay the same. It just adds 30 to it, because if I'm adding 30 to everybody, right? Does that really change the average? No, it just adds 30 to it. So my average changed, but they're still equidistant away from the average, aren't they? So my standard deviation would not change, right? Okay, one thing I heard I want to talk about, I forgot. Does anybody know what quartile 1 to quartile 3 is called? Interquartile range. I forgot to mention that. Interquartile range is quartile 3 to quartile 1. Your range is from your min and your max, right? Interquartile range, quarter 3 to quarter 1. Quartile, not quarter. Yes. So in our case, what did we have? Quartile 3 was at 11. Quartile 1 was at 6. So our interquartile range would be 5. Our overall range would be 10. Does that make sense to everybody? I forgot to talk about that. Overall, how we do? We had a good day? Nothing too bad? Okay. Once again, I want to bring up the fact that we will be adding these guys right here, but we'll be talking about them next period. Okay. We'll go over 8, 3, 8, 4, and then talk about these just because we're going to have the 100 minutes this time, so we'll have more time to do so. Our homework is, it is a worksheet.